if you do foresight work seriously, the first thing that happens when you give information to people, you expect they'll make better decisions. And most people aren't like your minister. Often the ministers who speak before me, and this will sound rude, are card-carrying idiots. This one was amazing. I'm actually in shock. So there's something going on here. Is it the water? I have no idea. But what happens is when you give people data about the future that contradicts how they see the world, they reject the data. And so what happens is zero-loop learning. We don't make better decisions. So we try to move towards single loop. What do we do differently Monday morning? Fantastic ideas. How do I change? Now that works until technology starts to go very quick. Then we're confronted with the unknown, and that leads to double loop learning. Now what does that mean in the real world? We were doing a project with many mayors looking at decarbonization, moving people from the office back to home. And the project was going well. Then we did the scans. The number one issue came out. One of the participants, she said, and this is in a conservative country, she said, yeah, but if my husband works from home, he'll have an affair with my maid. And we said, what? And suddenly the number one issue wasn't traffic congestion. The number one issue suddenly became gender equity. You cannot decarbonize and rethink the city without gender equity. So then that's level 4, which is narrative learning. What's the story? Her story was she's the queen of the home. And the new technologies were challenging that. So the mayor said, oh my God, I not only have to rethink transportation, I have to rethink what it means to run a home. And so this became the more important conversation. So in futures work, it's not just the prediction, but how do we transform the culture to optimize what we're trying to do? And most people stay with the technology instead of moving towards the deeper story. And the second challenge here is worldview bias. This is the story part. So I'm not saying I look like a rhinoceros or you do, but all of us, when we see the future, our baggage comes with us. So the story that Paul just talked about, do you want faster horses or novelty? So the double loop learning gets us out of our worldview bias. The role of foresight is also to challenge core assumptions. If you look at this slide, look lady, you're the one who asked for a famous movie star with dark hair, strong nose, and deep set eyes. She made some crucial assumptions. Anyone willing to yell out what one of them was? Come on, I know it's not so early in the morning, you're not so shy. Anyone? What's one core assumption she made? Yeah, there's a humanist issue. Second is, what's the nature of beauty? We were outside this hotel and the James Bond guy showed up. Beautiful, not beautiful, I'm not sure. The third big assumption is what she thought she said he heard. So there's always cultural assumptions. And again, as Paul said, we're not here just to predict or observe. The role of foresight is to change the world. So this is crucial here. So I want to pose this as, use the future as an asset. So when I work with pension funds, that's the same thing. First thing I say, labor is an asset, capital is an asset, the future is an asset, figure out how you're going to use it. In this journey, again, as I said, what do? You need some good data. Now the first part of it with Joan and Noah, I showed my daughter when she was younger. She said, Dad, Joan and Noah never hooked up. And I think she's right. So what do? In this case, we have the science. We don't always follow the science. Now, this becomes more challenging when the nature of science itself gets disrupted. I'm on a project looking at, in what year will humans marry robots? Now, those of you married may be saying, I'm already married to one. It's not a future thing, it's already happened. But if you start to go 20, 30 years, most likely 1 to 2% of the world's population will be marrying robots. At the same time, when we're talking about driverless cars, that was a weird idea until the mayor of New York says, we're going driverless. And again, the big disruption, how many have signed up for Mars One in the room? Mars One is the one-way expedition they're trying to plan. Anyone signed up? It's just one way. It's hard to get in, but they promise there may be water. So the future is disruptive. But there's antecedents of this disruption. If you go back 30, 40 years ago, today's presentations were about sustainability. Remember what the world looked like before. Each day, Humboldt supplies enough energy to melt 7 million tons of glacier. That's not this company's motto, obviously. Then suddenly, 10 years ago, it changes. If we want to protect nature, let's give animals rights. In one non-scientific survey, 54% said yes, give animals rights. New Zealand goes a step further and they give a river legal rights. Ecuador and Bolivia give all of nature legal rights. So suddenly we're destroying nature to how do we protect it. There's a major shift. The second part of foresight is again, what we imagine we can create. So this is the first imagination of a technology most of you use. Video, sound. 2002 it gets invented and we have Skype. 2012, major event in my life, I managed to get my mother to use an iPad to Skype us. Now I tried to teach her the mouse. You know what she would do with the mouse? She took the mouse and kept on smashing it. I said, Mom, that's not how you use it. She goes, no, it's a mouse. I said, no, no, no. Fortunately, the iPad was invented, and now she Skypes me, usually during talks. If the phone rings, I gotta take it. It's my mom, I'm really sorry. And as we go further, you see display error, basically leaving the screen. Those of you who have been to Spain, you can't enjoy Spain without a protest, right? If you've been to Barcelona, the way you define yourself is your protest. So the Spanish government has made protesting very difficult, so guess what the Spaniards did? The first hologram, protest hologram. I mean, it's actually a live event. Now the future, of course, is as you develop solar roads, imagine a protest on a solar road. A hologram protest on a solar road. That starts to shift how we see things. Now our challenge in the real world, okay, we're going to have the hologram protest already, but more and more 20, 30 years from now. How do we link that with today, all our problems we face today? So that's the sweet spot of futures going out 20 years. Not too far, but things that we can change. Now the mistake we make is we try to get out of our cave and we destroy our assets to get out. Instead of leaving where he's stuck, he takes the ladder and burns it. So that's not a good way to go. That's not using the future as an asset. It's destroying your asset.